Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vespera's Fanfiction Time. I'm your host, Vespera the Evening Star. This is my very first video, so I hope I do really good, and I hope y'all can give me some pointers if I mess up on some stuff. But most of all, I hope that you check out the author of today's story. Today, we will be reading I'll Be Your Hero at the Cost of Everything. It is one of my favorite stories, and it's still currently updating. The authors are extremely active, so it's looking really good. It has 26 chapters as of today. And so, yeah, it's going to be really exciting, and I hope y'all like it. So, let's begin. I'll Be Your Hero at the Cost of Everything. Summary. Merely days after getting attacked by a sludge villain, Izuku Midoriya is kidnapped by the Yakuza for his quirklessness. When the repercussion of not doing what he's told is a little girl getting experimented on and tortured, Midoriya decides the only option is to obey regardless of consequences. One of these long-term consequences somehow became seeing his kidnapper as a father figure and not knowing how to make it stop. Overhaul's constant praise certainly isn't helping. Chapter 1. Could things possibly get worse? Midoriya Izuku is tired. It's been days since the incident with the sludge villain. Izuku felt horrible getting in the way of the heroes, as they so graciously reminded him after the fight. All Might just seemed disappointed when he looked at him, like wanting to save someone he cares about with some horrible deed. Or maybe he was upset at him for being the cause of him losing the villain in the first place. Izuku doesn't blame him for that. He shouldn't have clung onto his leg like that. It was stupid in hindsight. He understands. He's quirkless. Saving people is impossible the way he is. He only got in the way. That day, Izuku gave up on his dreams of becoming a hero. Going to school only made things worse. People kept on ogling at Bakugo more than normal, while they teased Izuku for trying to play the hero. He's frustrated, but also just tired. It's nothing new. To apologize to his mom for terrifying her that day, Izuku decided to head to one of their local stores to get her something. She was a sobbing mess when he came home that day, and is still fussing over him, so it's the least he can do. The people on the street ignore or sneer at him, as always, something they did for years now after each store learned he was quirkless. Kind shopkeepers that would give him small candy or smile when he was younger now ignore or turn away from him entirely now. The ones that still let him in now charge more or sell the damaged goods that no one else wants. Inko had to stop bringing him at all by the age of 6 and shop alone, or they had to go out of their way to get normal prices. Well, her normal. This will always be Izuku's normal. The moment his shoes are noticed or he has to show his ID with a big red Q on it, he'll be treated differently from everyone else. His normal changed years ago. No matter what she says or tries to not notice, she's the one that refills the medicine cabinet after all. She just never brings up why. Izuku is used to it, but it never really gets easier. Perhaps it would be easier to deal with if he had a friend to rant to, or anyone other than his mom. He loves his mom, but he already puts enough stress on her by raising a quirkless kid who will grow up to be nothing. It's not fair to her, so he won't complain. When Izuku gets to the market, he looks around at the older pastries he got pointed at by the owner. They might be a little stale, but if he heats them up with a little water for steam, they'll be good. Izuku finds and buys a pack of cupcakes for an unfair price, and begins his walk home, away from the piercing gazes of those who see themselves as superior. It's a shame. The bakery is really warm, and seems friendly from the outside. Everything changes when he's noticed as quirkless. As Izuku walks home, he is so busy looking down at the cupcakes, mentally planning how to get them home without his mom noticing, he doesn't notice the one person that didn't move out of his way to avoid him like everyone else would, as if he was contagious or something. The man he bumps into is no way small. He blocks the sun from the kid's vision, and has to look way up to see his face at all. Izuku frowns. It's not entirely uncommon for people to purposely get in his way to cause issues with him. Bakugo's friends do it all the time. Still, he'd rather not make enemies with someone as giant as the man he ran into. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'll get out of your way. Izuku takes a step to move past the stranger, but stops when he hears the unmoving man's words. Green, the man says, looking down at Izuku to observe him. Double green? Tiny. Red shoes. Fought a slime? Izuku hesitates. Yes? He should have known more people would recognize him so soon after the sludge villain attacked him in Bakugo. They were on the news, but he didn't think about it. But I wouldn't say fought. More just getting in the way. Nah. Fought it? Won. The large man nods. Takes guts to fight a bigger opponent. Gotta be smart about it. You were. Pretty impressive. For a noodle. Izuku blushes profusely from the compliments and embarrassment for being called a noodle. He supposes, compared to this man, he is. He can't imagine how many years of working out it must have taken to get his level of muscle. It was just normal deducing. I mean, if you don't have any effect on the slime, go after other things. The eyes and the teeth are the only other things visible, so it was worth a shot. Izuku shrugs. Clearly more than the heroes thought to do. The man scoffs. Bah! Cowards gave up. Death Arms is all about the fight, but even he gave up. Well, at least All Might was there to save us, Izuku says softly. He could have hit you or the other kid. Reckless to jump into someone else's fight without at least calling a warning. The man crosses his arms. Liquids don't compress well when hit. Whatever is inside gets a harder hit than if out in the air. If he hit it with the kid inside, their organs would be hurt from the concussive force needed to splatter it. Reckless. Izuku grimaces. Maybe, but no one else was able to defeat the villain, so I'm thankful anyways. He looks down, fidgeting with his hands more from the information the man has given him. Is that why he felt so bad after All Might hit him out of the slime? He thought it was the almost drowning and being a puppet thing. His mom had to take him to a clinic for the slime in his lungs. His wrist was pretty hurt from the second incident, too, when All Might held his and Bakugo's wrists together from the wind he made. Shouldn't be thankful to someone hit at hostages to get a guy, but whatever. The man shrugs again before he takes out his phone. Time got away from me. Time to go now. All right. Have a good day, says Izuku, smiling awkwardly. The conversation was strange, but a nice strange. He isn't used to the compliments, and honestly, he was expecting the man to call him careless and nothing more, like the heroes did. That joy doesn't last long. I wasn't talking about me. The man puts his phone away and suddenly steals the cupcake box. Izuku can't voice his confusion before the man crouches to grab Izuku around the waist to throw him over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. It takes a moment to process what's happened. What? Hey, wait a second! Izuku tries pushing himself away and wiggling to loosen the man's grip. Nope, running late. Boss won't be happy. The man gets a black fabric bird-like plague doctor mask out of his back pocket and puts it on. For a moment, Izuku hears and sees people reacting to the commotion. He looks around, desperately, expecting, hoping someone will come and help him. However, most only look worried and stare for a few moments before they go back to what they were doing. He recognizes these people, after all. He's lived in the same area with them all his life. The only ones that seem worried are a few shoppers that he doesn't recognize, most talking quickly on their phones. Izuku can only hope they are calling the police. The praise the villain was giving him almost seems like a joke now. Was he trying to lower Izuku's guard? But it didn't feel like sarcastic compliments he would normally get. No, let go of me! The boy's heart beats out of his chest as he continues pushing and struggling. He knows the statistics for people like him. Most quirkless kids die around their high school years for a multitude of reasons, one of which being targeted attacks on them. He remembers being all too curious a year or two ago and learning he didn't have long before he'd become another statistic. That was crushing. But still, he needed to get home to his mom. He already scared her enough from the sludge villain. He can't die here. The villain doesn't care for his struggling, though. It hardly seems to faze him. Boss's orders, little fighter, the man says, voice slightly muffled in the mask. Wants to meet you. He wants to meet me? Why? Izuku asks in a panic. Quirkless, free of sickness others have. Only one we found thanks to the reporters overhearing that loud blonde boy today. The villain carries Izuku to a sleek black car with someone in the driver's seat waiting. This was planned. Izuku whimpers in a mix of confusion and fear, trying to wrap his head around the information given, but no matter how hard he tries, he doesn't understand. All he knows is that he's been targeted for his quirk status, and Bakugo is the one who told the world. He eventually realizes fighting is doing nothing and no one is coming to help him. So he stops struggling in the hopes he won't get hurt if he complies. Don't worry, little fighter. You're the guest of honor. The villain opens the doors to the back seat and tosses Izuku inside. It's built like a police car, with a cage between him and the front. Likely, the doors only open from the outside, too. He tosses the cupcakes on the seat next to him as Izuku tries to situate himself in the seat. The villain shuts the door to head up front before Izuku can even try to do anything. The other person in the car is a terrifying man in a ragged burlap sack mask that covers his entire head and is held by a rope knot around his neck like a scarecrow. He is grumbling about being hungry as he looks at the cupcakes in the rearview mirror. Izuku curls up in his seat, tearing up as he looks at the cupcakes that were meant to be a gift for his mom. He just hopes he will be let go in one piece. He doubts the cupcakes will be enough of an apology for this. He wipes his tears and nervously looks at the other man. If you want, you can take one, he offers. It's not like they'll be of much use to him now. Food? The man seems to perk up at this as the other laughs. Focus on driving first, Tabe. The man looks back at Izuku just as relaxed as he was talking earlier. His quirk's drawback makes him hungry all the time, so we try to keep any eating in a table time. You can still share, but not while we're driving, or he might eat the car. And us. Izuku blinks, wiping away his tears. It makes him hungry? He quickly tries to redirect his mind on something he knows will be comforting. Quirks. Eat the car and us. Does that mean he can eat more than just normal edible food? Izuku asks sheepishly. Yeah, the man who really should give a name pats his friend, coworker, on the shoulder. Tabe here can't eat anything. Still haven't won any eating contests against him, but it's a good fight every time. Rappa, Tabe says, sounding embarrassed at how happy the other man, Rappa, sounds. That's really cool, Izuku nods slowly. If you can eat anything, then the possibilities are endless. The only limitations would be if your teeth are like anyone else's. Then you would risk breaking your teeth. If you don't have those limitations, though, then you could get through anything, like if there's something in the way. Plus, if you work smart enough, you can get rid of any enemy weapons, break out of any sort of containment. You can do a lot, really. Hard to catch someone who can just eat through any obstacle and stuff. Yeah. He blushes when he realizes he was rambling and curls up on himself more. Aw, you got a fan, Tabe! Rabbit slaps his own leg, amused. And yeah, his teeth are stronger, so no worries. Talks fast and smart, like boss, Tabe says as he drives. When do they start moving? Farther and farther away from his home. Izuku is thoroughly embarrassed by the amount of compliments he's been getting in such a short amount of time. Don't get him wrong, he's still terrified. But he doesn't think kidnappings are meant to be like this. Where are the threats of murder, or mocking words of fake encouragement? I just like picking apart quirks. A lot of heroes have weaknesses villains can exploit, or things they can do to make themselves stronger that they just don't think of. As a hero, you want to cover all your bases. So, should you know your weaknesses, you can make them not as damaging and generally know what to do when they are taken advantage of in some way, Izuku explains. Ah, little fighter is a quirk analyst. Rappa nods. Pretty good profession. Well sought after. It's just a hobby, Izuku mumbles. I didn't have a quirk of my own, so analyzing quirks was the next best thing. Sounded like more than a hobby, little fighter, Rappa chuckles. Don't sell yourself so short. You can't afford to lose any more height. Izuku blinks. Hey, I'm still growing. I could get taller than you someday. You don't know, he argues. Ha! I look forward to a fight when you get there, Rappa laughs, but not in the same cruel way the other kids or adults do at school. He is just loud and happy for a villain, it seems. Izuku's eyes sparkle with a strange feeling, now incredibly conflicted. This is just really weird. He decides not to speak anymore, or at least not start any conversations until they get to wherever their destination is. He stays curled up in the corner for most of the ride, looking out the window as they drive to who knows where. They drive for a long time, past places he recognizes and quickly places he's never seen before in his life, and into an entirely different prefecture even, before they pull up to the gates of a massive traditional-looking compound with a symbol of some kind. Whatever villains they are powerful enough to not hide in the same way most do. That leaves Izuku far more nervous than he had moments before. What if he doesn't come out of this alive? Izuku's phone weighs heavy in his pocket, but he knows not to do anything yet. Not in plain sight. He might be able to hide it long enough until he's alone. "We're here!" Rappa says happily as Tabe gets past the gate and heads to an underground garage. There are guards at the entrance. Where is here exactly?" Izuku asks. "Welcome to the Shihegakashi, little fighter, the last Yakuza group in Japan," Rappa says proudly. Izuku blinks. Oh, someone needs to explain to Izuku how he got wrapped up in getting kidnapped by a Yakuza group. "You should feel honored, little fighter," Rappa says. Not many can say they met any Yakuza, let alone 2 high-ranking members, or the boss. "Met and lived," Tape adds. True. Met and lived." Rappa nods as they park. Izuku holds any physical or vocal reaction. As terrified as he is, he should try not to show that. Right? He doesn't know what the Yakuza want with him, but showing fear is probably the worst idea. He wipes away his forming tears and squeezes his eyes shut until he can semi-confidently open them again without waterfalls coming out of his eyes. "Am I going to live?" Izuku forces himself to ask, the shaking in his voice obvious despite his attempts at hiding it. "I hope so. We have a fight when you're bigger. Can't do it if you die." Rappa laughs again, yet it's still not the cruel laughs he's used to. "Impress the boss and you'll be fine," Tape says. "Time to get out. Running is useless." Izuku assumed as much. Running when he's already in the Yakuza's base, surrounded by criminals? Sounds like a horrible idea. But how does he even impress the head of the Yakuza? What do Yakuza members like? All he has with him is cupcakes and a bag full of school supplies, for crying out loud. Right. Okay. Izuku half considers pulling out his phone and saying his last goodbyes to his mom, but he knows that's a bad idea. Just do what they say. Maybe he'll make it out of it alive. Unlikely, but he has to try. Rappa gets out first and stretches, back and knees popping from being in a normal-sized car. Tabe gets out and goes to Izuku's door to let him out, eyes mainly focused on the box he has. The green-haired boy climbs out of the car with the pastries in hand. He looks down at the container of 4 decently big cupcakes, frowning at the thought of his mother. He opens up the container and takes out a cupcake, offering one to Tabe. I did offer." "Thanks." Tabe nods as he takes it, the mouth of his mask opening to show a quirked, changed mouth, much wider than normal and with larger teeth, a mutation that likely made life harder without the eating quirk added to it. Izuku tries not to stare, though his quirk-obsessed brain is running wild with thoughts. He looks at the container he's closing instead. "I guess. Let's go," Izuku asks shyly. He'd rather not, but waiting too long isn't a good idea. "That's the spirit!" Rappa is smiling behind the mask. Izuku bites his tongue to stop himself from mentioning he actually has no spirit right now. I hope it isn't too weird to bring in a pack full of cupcakes inside a Yakuza headquarters place, he mumbles to himself instead as he follows Rappa and Tape deeper into the compound. "We still like sweets and stuff like normal people," Rappa says in amusement. "We just do evil things and eat evil foods." "Should I have brought evil cupcakes instead?" Izuku jokes. "Ha! This kid is a riot, Tabe!" Rappa laughs, startling some people they pass, not in bird mask. "Do the masks show rank?" Izuku weakly smiles. At least his last peaceful moments will be surprisingly nice. Rappa doesn't seem to be condescending in his words, which is a nice change of pace. Maybe he should be paying more attention to his surroundings, thinking of his escape plans or how to impress the Yakuza boss. But he knows he won't be able to anyways. He's not strong or smart or talented in anything. He has nothing to offer the Yakuza, and in the end, that will be his downfall. He'll just focus heavily on what it feels like to be alive until he is unable to. They pass a few people that give Izuku double takes as they walk, either because he's a small kid just walking around, the bright happy cupcakes, or the fact 2 high-ranking members are with him casually is hard to tell. Eventually, they reach a large ornate door, the boss's door. "All right, little fighter, here it is." Rappa nods. "Okay." Izuku hesitates, but he knows there's no other option. He takes a deep breath before nodding to Rappa. "Word of advice," Tappa starts as Rappa knocks. Boss hates germs, so avoid touching him. Izuku smiles. Thanks for the advice, Tabe-san. He doesn't seem that bad, too, if you forget the fact the man helped kidnap him. Tabe nods as a bored voice calls them in, Rappa quickly opening the door for them after. Izuku follows them inside, fidgeting nervously as he looks around the boring room. The only thing that stands out, it's very clean. It reminds Izuku of a hospital. There's a few medical and quirk books on the desk, but nothing else stands out to Izuku besides the boss himself. The man behind the desk is a weird mix of casual businessman and exotic bird, over-the-top plague doctor. His hair and clothes are pretty plain for a world of quirks, but the big, fluffy purple boa and ornate leather mask bring out the bird theme he seems to have. Do villains always have themes like this? They're like theater kids that went evil. We got the little fighter boss, Rappa says, nudging Izuku forward and forcing him back to reality. The Yakuza group doesn't look up from his papers until Rappa calls out. He seems to perk up and looks at Izuku intently. Izuku tenses up at the attention, but he manages to give a polite, curt bow. The Yakuza leader gets up and moves his papers to a folder on the desk before he walks around it to stand before Izuku. He has a good 5 inches of height over Izuku, and the sharp golden eyes that look at Izuku as if he were a bug he wants to take apart is not helping the terror of meeting him. Greetings, Midoriya Izuku, the Yakuza leader says. Izuku's mouth went dry hearing his full name. He and his mom watched the news report when they finally had a moment of peace. Not once was his name said. I am Overhaul, leader of the Shin Hakashi. Izuku's used to this feeling of wanting to cower and run away, but being forced to stand on it anyways. He is used to this from the bullying Bakugo and his friends would put him through, the explosions and burns he constantly got. He knows this feeling all too well. However, it's now more terrifyingly life-threatening. At least he knew Bakugo wouldn't kill him, despite the death threats he constantly threw at him. Bakugo couldn't kill him if he wanted to be a hero. He can't say the same now. He could die at any moment. Hello, Overhaul-sama. Izuku decides not to focus on however scared he is, and just focus on being nice and polite, like always. He doubts he'll be able to stop himself from shaking in front of the Yakuza when he already trembles just from Bakugo, but at least he can show he won't back down, so he makes sure not to break eye contact. Just be nice, quiet, polite, quirkless kid, and maybe he'll survive. How polite. Most children are rather rude nowadays. Overhaul hums and tilts his head in a bird-like way. It would be funny if he wasn't in this position. Although, with the unfair treatment you receive from the rats out there, you'll likely have to be polite to everyone, even if they don't deserve it. Shit. He's gotten caught already? Kind of? Izuku's really not sure how to go about this, but maybe making conversation is the best way to go. But there's also a side of things where if you're too polite, people think you're mocking them or being disrespectful. So, you tend to learn what to avoid, though. True. Overhaul looks to his 2 men and waves them away. You two can go now. Clean off the filth of the outside. Izuku tries not to panic more than he already is, and instead turns politely to wave at them. Bye, Rappa. Bye, Tape. Bye, little fighter. Rappa waves and leads Tape out. Gonna get this guy fed. See you later. See you later. Hopefully. Once the doors close, Izuku focuses his attention back on Overhaul. Now then, Midoriya. Overhaul goes back to his desk and waves him to follow. I'm sure you're wondering why I have you here. Izuku reluctantly follows the villain, making sure to stay an arm's length away. Yeah, it was, not what I expected to happen on a Tuesday afternoon. Have a seat, and I can tell you. Overhaul nods to a normal-looking chair for Izuku, but it has medical paper over it, like an exam seat in a clinic. Either he really leans into the medical plague doctor theme, or has a legitimate issue with germs that affects his day-to-day life. Tabe mentioned it, but most people aren't really this strict with their dislikes, and his words earlier about getting clean is making it seem like the latter. Odd, but he does suppose this is his area to control. So Izuku won't judge. He just never expected a villain to have a phobia of germs of all things. Izuku sits down and anxiously fidgets as he waits to hear what the point of all of this was. I suppose the simplest way to say this is that you have a gift the rest of the world needs. Overhaul starts. The intense look he's giving the poor kid not going away. Izuku is finding it very hard not to break eye contact. Gift? Izuku fidgets nervously. I don't think I understand. The villain continues. Quirks are a sickness that I plan to destroy to clean the filth away. Clean like it used to be before them. Overhaul states, no joking tone or humor in his voice. You, Midoriya, are clean from the filth, and the perfect example of my goal. You want to destroy quirks? Izuku's mind starts racing faster than he can keep up with. But that shouldn't be possible. You would have to destroy the entire biology of a person's quirk, which hasn't happened ever. You have a higher chance of killing the person rather than just getting rid of their quirk. There are quirks that temporarily disable other quirks, but fully destroying quirks is unheard of because of the way they are ingrained in the human DNA, and not like pre-quirk era fantasy stories where you can just take the powers away. Izuku slaps a hand over his mouth and mumbles an apology, less embarrassed this time and more nervous. His mumbling gets him yelled at a lot, and he really rather not upset the Yakuza boss. You know your quirks, Overhaul says, sounding impressed. Izuku blinks at him in confusion before letting his hand fall back down to his lap. What I meant was just that it sounds like a near impossible task, Izuku says sheepishly. Exactly. Near impossible. Overhaul does the head tilt again. We found a way. Izuku's eyes widened. You did? He's entirely terrified, but he wonders if he's allowed to ever so slightly be fascinated. It still has some issues to work out to make it permanent unless we undo it, but we can stop quirk factors for up to a day now, Izuku says. That's... How does Izuku even respond to this? The thought leaves a cold chill down his back. But he doesn't want to sound rude either. And it's not like he isn't curious. Incredible in a technological view. Having the ability to disable a quirk for up to a day without it being a quirk's work is unheard of, and it does show how close the process is to doing what you want. He trails off. We mostly use it to stop Tabe's quirk drawbacks when they get out of hand, but the goal is to stop the quirks of the world, Overhaul says. Which is why we collected you. Because I was born quirkless. Izuku looks down at his hands. I'm a prime example of what you want to achieve. Correct, Overhaul nods. We also wanted to get you away from the filth and pain from the outside world before they killed you, like the other quirkless we found. We never got to them in time. Not before you. Izuku shifts in his seat. One hand, the reasons Overhaul is telling him he's here are weirdly kind. Too kind for the Yakuza. There's likely some sort of catch. And on top of that, their obsession with causing the world to go back to being quirkless is terrifying, because now he's kind of involved. Izuku quickly goes to defend. It's not all bad. I mean, sure, my classmates tease me, but what kid hasn't gotten bullied in school? People don't respect me, but children aren't usually anyways. Heroes think I'm in the way. No one believes I can't accomplish my dreams. I get charged under prices at stores, and Izuku looks down. Memories of treatment he's faced his entire life, making his eyes sting. Maybe it's pretty bad. Yes, my men have seen how you were treated when they were researching you. Overhaul sounds like he's frowning behind the mask. We all have similar backstories due to our own quirk status, but you... Oh, your treatment was something surprising even for us, for one so young and free of sickness. Izuku fidgets uncomfortably. No one likes the quirkless, and no one knows how it feels to be one. Being a kid means nothing. Izuku glares at his hands. Resentment he's often pushes away, suddenly bubbling up. I'm quirkless before I'm human. Which is a shame. Because being quirkless makes you human, Overhaul says. Before the sickness of quirks, everyone was quirkless, and the world worked perfectly. Science was constantly advancing. We were exploring space and finding ways to better the world. Quirkless people did far more than any quirked person ever did. In fact, the obsession with quirks and hero sickness has moved progression backwards. Izuku finds himself agreeing. It's so stupid how everyone treats me like I'm glass, as if I'm just some weak and fragile thing that needs protecting or is in the way. And it's all because I don't have a quirk. Izuku huffs in frustration, a strange feeling of relief appearing inside him. Quirkless people can be just as strong if we lived long enough to become that strong. That's what I'm going to offer here, Overhaul says, his tone of voice more curious as the conversation progresses. The compound is safe from the outside and can help you grow. It will only get more dangerous from here for you out there. No high schools accept quirkless children, even if they say they do. Oh. Izuku's fingers fidget and tap against each other as he remembers the situation he's in. I don't mean this at all in a rude way, but what's the catch? You're a Yakuza boss, so you'd want to make use of me in some way, right? Smart questions, Overhaul nods. There would be a few tests to find what makes you quirkless and how to replicate it, but my quirk can undo those in seconds and without scars. The other thing is a babysitter. A babysitter? Izuku tilts his head. Yes. Overhaul takes a photo from a shelf behind the desk to show Izuku. It's an older man, sitting with a little silver-haired girl on his lap. They are smiling with two other people behind them. They look like the girl's parents. This is Eri. She is my boss's granddaughter and was entrusted into my care after he went into a coma, and I took over. Overhaul goes on to explain. I am not good with children. They are sticky and can carry so many germs. I need someone to care for her, someone that isn't a criminal. That would scare her, and younger so she doesn't get uncomfortable. Izuku looks at the photo, his expression softening. He's always had a soft spot for children. They are so full of light and joy. He even remembers begging his parents for a little sibling before his quirkless diagnosis. He looks down at the pack of cupcakes on his lap. His mom. His mom would be better off without him, wouldn't she? She gave up on her aspirations and dreams to help raise a quirkless kid who would likely die before adulthood. She deserved so much more than that. Maybe leaving without saying goodbye is cruel, but there's a chance that if he doesn't agree, his mom might not even get his corpse to bury. At least like this. There's minimal amounts of pain on both sides. Right? He misses her already. All right, Izuku says softly. Yeah, I can do that. Glad you agreed. Overhaul sets the photo back down before he gets up. I can show you to your new room and meet Yuri. Right. Okay. Izuku stands up, breathing a sigh of relief as he realizes he managed to survive. Overhaul waves for him to follow, and as they walk, he keeps a slight distance between them. Most people did that because he's quirkless, but this doesn't feel the same. He has a very high status, and it's another point to point out the fear of germs again. Izuku wonders if he should get a normal medical mask or something. Nothing fancy like the cool bird mask the higher-ranking Yakuza have, but he'd rather not stand out or make Overhaul uncomfortable with his fear of germs. That's something for later him to figure out. For now, he follows Overhaul, at least now less anxious than before and able to focus on the hallways around them. He doesn't really get Yakuza vibes from this place, though he supposes it makes sense that the place isn't decked out in weapons like villains from shows have. It just feels out of place for everything to look so normal. They get some bows as they pass people that noticed Overhaul, but no one stops them as they go down the hallways. Overhaul leads Izuku to a normal-looking wall that opens up to a secret part of the compound that only bird-masked people pass them in. Even guards outside the room, Izuku notices, have on bird masks. Izuku feels horribly out of place for many, many reasons. Right now, being the lack of a bird mask. But then again, That might be reassurance to Eerie that he's not a criminal and just another kid that somehow managed to be in this place. He hopes that will be the case at least. Move aside. We are here for Eerie, Overhaul orders. The guards bow and step aside, sparing a glance for Izuku, but not saying anything. Overhaul opens the door to a small room, children's toys laying around, and there are some comfort objects, but it feels more like a cell than a children's room. Izuku frowns as he peeks inside, wondering just how long she's been in such a limiting environment. He doubts he'll have much influence here, but maybe he can suggest things to help. Overhaul did say he was bad with kids. Maybe he just doesn't know what kids need. On the bed in a corner sits the little girl. She seems weary of the two of them, but not fully scared from her pile of blankets and a couple of plushies. Her big, curious, and confused red eyes look at Izuku's green ones. He steps inside the girl's room, but doesn't get too close to her fortress. He never liked it when people intruded on his safe space, especially when he didn't know them. So this seems like a safe bet. "Hello, Eerie," Izuku says softly. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you." "Hello." Eerie's voice is soft and quiet. Why are you here?" She glances at Overhaul, only for a second, but Izuku notices the fear in her eyes. "Overhaul hired me to be a babysitter for you," Izuku says. "I'd basically be watching over you and making sure you're safe," he explains with a soft smile. "A boy nanny?" Eerie squints at the new word. He shouldn't be too surprised. Being the granddaughter of a Yakuza boss likely means she had high-class version of things. So nanny, instead of babysitter, is probably all she had before now. Izuku chuckles. "I don't think I would be too different from a nanny. So yeah, think of it like that." "Oh, you don't look like a nanny. You're not old," Eerie says in that offended way kids do. The masked guard snorts, but coughs to cover it up as he looks away. Overhaul sighs and steps away from the guard. Izuku snickers at Eerie's words and the reactions it caused. "No, I'm not. I'm probably closer to your age than I am to most of the people here," Izuku explains. "Babysitters are usually around my age, actually. We're different from nannies in that way, but it's also good because we can get along better. We can play games and complain about stinky adults." Eerie wrinkles her nose and nods. "Adults smell like cleaning stuff and American pennies Grandpa showed me." "Exactly. You can complain all the time to me about a stinky adult since I'm not a stinky adult." Izuku smiles brighter. He's making progress. Eerie giggles softly and wiggles in her nest to get closer. A quiet alert goes off behind him, causing Overhaul to check his phone. He looks at Izuku for a moment before nodding to himself, as if deciding things are going well enough for him to leave. Izuku perks up at this, now seeing an opportunity to try and get closer with Eerie, but without the uncomfortableness of a Yakuza boss watching. He takes a couple steps closer to her while he talks. "Even better, because we're both kids. We both can have a silent agreement not to snitch on each other. Yeah?" Izuku says softly. "It might be good to establish this sort of trust early on. With both of them being kids stuck in the Yakuza, there's no way they won't get in trouble or break some sort of rule at that point." He doubts punishments here would be sitting in a corner and thinking about his actions. Eerie tilts her head. "Snitch? Snitches are people that tell on others and gets them in trouble," Izuku says. "So if we agree not to snitch, we agree not to get each other in trouble. I'll have your back if someone suspects you of any child crimes." "Ooh, can we commit crime?" Eerie asked, eyes sparkling. "Grandpa said I was too small for crime." "The generations are talking about crime younger and younger nowadays, huh?" "Child-sized crime," Izuku explains. "Like stealing an extra cookie from the cookie jar. Big kid crime will be allowed when you're older." "Oh, okay," Eerie nods and whispers. "Are we committing child crimes? Is that what you asked?" "Not now," Izuku whispers back. "But later, we can commit some child crimes." Izuku is now standing in front of Eri and her bed, with no negative reactions yet. Mind if I sit with you? Eri nods and scoots over in her nest. It's a little small for Izuku to get in, but he's able to sit down next to the nest, which is the next best thing. Thanks. Izuku smiles and sits down. He looks down at the cupcakes and opens a container. Actually, the first crime of our friendship. He takes out one and offers her it. Eri gasps as her eyes sparkle. Is that okay? I'm offering. If anyone finds out, you're free to blame me, Izuku says with a grin. But, Eri frowns. I don't want you to get in trouble. Overhaul is mean. Izuku keeps his smile up for her. That's very sweet of you, Eri, but well, I think he'd be more upset if I wasted them or let them rot and get all gross, he shrugs. Overhaul put me in charge of watching you, so it's my job to keep you happy and safe. If he doesn't like the way I do that, then it's his fault for not being specific. Okay, Eri nods. You are in charge. Eri reaches over and takes the one Izuku offered with a seriousness normally seen in a hard task. She takes off the wrapper and proceeds to pull the lower part of it in half and flip it onto the icing to make a little sandwich. Her movements slow and careful to avoid crumbs in her nest. Izuku only smiles fondly as he watches Eri. This isn't so bad. He can handle spending his days taking care of this kid. He gently pats Eri's head, careful not to accidentally brush over the little horn on her forehead. Eri twitches and looks up at him for a moment, staring at him as if she expects him to do something before she shyly leans into his side and goes back to munching. She seems much more relaxed, and he spends the next few moments in comfortable silence with Eri, allowing himself to slowly process everything that's happened. He's tired, but strangely happy that he's here if he can help this kid, though it probably helps that he hasn't processed anything that's happened quite yet. Eri eventually finishes her cupcake and yawns, rubbing her eyes. Her arm raised allows Izuku to see some kind of small band-aids on her arms that were previously covered by her blanket fort. He frowns slightly. His first instinct is to ask what happened, but deciding not to. There are far too many band-aids for her comfort, but she also could just be a clumsy kid. He can't jump to conclusions yet. It is pretty late, isn't it? Izuku says, trying to distract himself when he really has no clue what time it is. Ready for bed, Eri? Yeah. Eri looks around her tiny room. Where will you go? Overhaul said I have a room, so it's probably separate from yours. Izuku shrugs. I don't think I should leave until he comes back, though. That sounds not safe. Oh, Eri frowns. You have to go. It's okay. I'll be back tomorrow, Izuku reassures her. You will? Eri asks. Yeah, I'm your babysitter until further notice. Izuku smiles brightly. Okay. Eri nods and burrows back into her nest. I don't like being alone. I'll spend as much time as I can with you, Izuku says softly, continually to gently pet over her head. Eri nods and settles into a side more, getting more and more tired until she curls up and falls asleep. Izuku doesn't move much, letting the girl sleep on his side while he waits. He can't imagine being surrounded by adult Yakuza members all the time. Would be very fun for a young kid like Eri. Little kids need kids their own age. Way more toys. Really, just a lot more than what she has now. Izuku hopes that he can at least help her get out her inner child chaos in a way the adults probably wouldn't be able to. It's not long after Eri falls asleep that the door opens with a click, and who enters is Overhaul again. He looks pretty much the same, but there's some blood on his face he's cleaning off with his gloves, and a cloth that makes Izuku's face pale. Sorry for the delay. There's an issue with some lower-level members, Overhaul explains. It has been dealt with. It's all right. Izuku keeps his voice soft to not disturb Eri. It gave Eri some time to warm up to me, so it all worked out. He pointedly avoids looking anywhere near the blood. He needs to remember that people here are dangerous criminals. He has to be careful. Wonderful to hear. Overhaul nods. I can take you to your room. Rappa will be by later to bring you food. It is too soon to join the others in the cafeteria, as they may attack you. That's okay. It will take some time to get used to the new environment anyways. So eating with a bunch of people might be overwhelming, as Izuku would shrug, but then remembers Eri still cuddled against his side. Carefully, he leans Eri back and onto her nest. Once he makes sure she doesn't stir, he makes sure to cover her with her blanket before standing up. There we go. Overhaul seems to be observing how he acts with Eri with a slight head tilt. You're very kind. For someone treated like you have been. Are you not angry? Izuku blinks at him. Angry? The world has hurt you many times. Why are you not angry at it? Why are you still kind? Overhaul asks. Izuku is silent for a moment, his smile fading. He never really thought about it. If I got angry at the store owner for giving me damaged items or always pricing their things higher for me, that wouldn't convince them to change the price. He looks at Overhaul. I do sometimes get angry, but if I wasn't kind, I think I would have already been dead by now. Overhaul nods and leads him out, Izuku following behind. It's commendable you've stayed kind for so long. Is it? Izuku shrugs as they walk through the halls. It's just second nature for me. All of us have faced oppression and the cruelty of the world. We are not kind like you. We can be nice enough to each other, but that is mostly a necessity for working and living together as an organization, Overhaul points out. You are kind to be kind. That is suspicious to us, as people always want something. Oh, Izuku nods in understanding. That makes sense. I think I'm just spineless, though. Can't be mean to people if you don't have the confidence to be. Mostly. He mostly jokes. There's some weight to it, though. Keep the kindness. Eri will need it more than we. We can just teach you to be mean when you need to, but don't lose it. Izuku hums in understanding, looking at the tall villain curiously. He doesn't seem too bad now that he's not fearing for his life as bad. Eventually, they stop at another cell-like room. This is yours. It has a shower attached, unlike Eri's. She's too young for one alone, Overhaul explains. Definitely a new change to what Izuku's used to, but he'll survive. A cell-like room is better than an actual cell. He walks into the room, but turns to smile nervously at the Yakuza boss, and gives a polite bow. Thank you, Overhaul-sama. You're welcome. Overhaul nods. Rappa will be by later for dinner. Have a good night, Midoriya. Good night. Izuku wakes as Overhaul leaves. The door closes without the lock click, like Eri's did. That feels odd. Sure, he agreed to stay, but for all Overhaul knows, he could be planning to leave at any moment. Wouldn't locking the door ensure he couldn't? Izuku decides not to question it, and waits patiently instead, just in case Overhaul comes back. When he doesn't, he pulls out his phone to check if anyone's called or messaged or tried to make any sort of contact with him. There isn't anything, but the full bars of service stare right back at him. After a long few moments of contemplation, he looks through his contacts and picks a number on the short list. As it rings, he goes into the farthest corner in the room and sits down. The phone rings for a few times before it picks up and a rough voice answers. Why the fuck do you have my number, Deku? Comes Bakugo's voice. Izuku tears up. Finally, something he knows and understands. At least he's used to this. Sorry, Kachan. Izuku weakly laughs, keeping his voice low and quiet. I know I'm not supposed to call you, but Auntie Mizuki gave it to me for emergencies. What do you want, Deku? Bakugo grouches out. And why not call the hag? Bother her with your issue. Izuku fidgets, trying to give a good reason enough for Bakugo to not hang up on him. She wouldn't have a good reaction or be able to think clearly. You can think rationally. So, spit it out already! Bakugo snaps. Izuku tenses. Bakugo's yelling already causes spikes of fear, and in such a tense moment, it's not helping. What's even the point of this? Why did he think this was a good idea? Kachan is the exact thing Overhaul described when they talk. Why isn't he angry? Why is he begging to be heard and listened, and to be saved by someone who doesn't care and never will? Right. Never mind. Izuku mumbles. Thanks for your answer, I guess. Bye, Kachan. He doesn't want this to be the last time they speak, so he doesn't hang up just yet, waiting, hoping he's wrong, hoping that Bakugo will say something. He's gripping onto any last grains of hope that the loud teen will notice something is wrong. Whatever. Don't bother me again, Deku. Bakugo hangs up abruptly. And that's it. Izuku lets out a weak sob. I won't, Kachan. He spends a second, looking at Bakugo's contact, before shutting off his phone completely. It won't be any use to him anymore. He knows the police probably wouldn't try to track his phone, so there's no point in getting rid of it. Besides, it will stop him from being tempted to check if anyone bothered to check on him. He'll only get hurt from the horrible truth he's been ignoring for years. With nothing better to do, Izuku heads to the shower to get clean. Maybe a hot shower can help him feel better. Wash off the past as he lives his new life. So that was chapter 1 of I'll Be Your Hero at the Cost of Everything. Like I said, one of my favorite fan fictions, and it's still being updated, so that makes it even better. And the authors are amazing. I got their approval to read their fan fiction for my Podfic, and I'm really honored that they approved. And I hope everyone enjoyed this. I plan on reading more chapters until the story is complete. And yeah, that'll be all, folks. Have a good night, or a good day, or a good morning. I don't know. Have a good one.